set intro video. And we're live.
All right.
Good afternoon, UK viewers and live viewers, and hello if you're watching this again. I'm Sean Turner. I'm the chair of the CSA, the Cloud Security Alliance UK chapter. I've got with me Paul Simmons, who's one of our board members, who's been around a little while and knows a lot about the chapter and about identity management, which is the subject of our discussion today. Our chapter has started sort of going off on sort of genres and picking themes for our efforts, and the things that we're going to concentrate on. Identity management is certainly one of them. So we're happy to introduce Michael Silver, who's representing Astrix Security, and is going to talk to us about identities that don't represent people, non-human identity management, which is probably more likely to be sort of machine and service accounts in your environment as opposed to cats and dogs. But yeah, it's a term that's going to stick. Michael, over to you.
Yeah, great. Maybe we'll start, capturing cats and dogs soon enough, but not today. All right, let me share my side. Put this up here.
I'm just briefly saying, if you've got any questions for Michael and you're watching on the live stream, we can pick those up live at chat and address them towards the end.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I know we're trying to keep this under 30 minutes, so I'll be pretty quick. Go to the slides. But again, if there are questions, please direct them to the chat and we can answer them as we go. So who am I, right? Michael Silva. I run solution engineering here at Astrix. I'm based on the East Coast of the U.S. In North Carolina. And I've been with Astrix Security for about 1.5 years. Before that, a lot of practitioner side, working in different security operation centers, doing offensive and defensive security. Also Marine before that, 2 life stages ago, probably. But now I do a lot of this. I like to do, what are we actually, collaboration, teaching, learning into different communities. Done a lot with the CSA chapter before in different chapters, but what are we going to cover here today, right? So first, we're going to cover exactly what Sean was talking about, like what are non-human identities. So we're going to cover that a little bit. Then we're going to cover a report that the Cloud Security Alliance did on non-human identities. We're also going to walk through an actual attack leveraging NHIs. Then we'll talk a little bit about how Astrix solves the solution. So what are non-human identities, right? Non-human identities, as Sean was talking about, right? Service accounts, API keys, app extensions, anything that really has programmatic access to data or processes that are not needed for a human to actually connect into the environment. So it means they can be autonomous to what humans are doing. They don't need to be involved. How did we get here? First of all, is really what we need to figure out. We start off here, in the caveman era, and then we get into the human era, right? Once we start going live with technology stacks and tracking human users through Active Directory or our main IDP, right? That's where we're really worried about every human user, right? From there, we moved into the cloud era. Right. With the cloud era, we started getting keys, tokens, machine service accounts, machine roles, machine identities. Everything has its own process. Every process has its own identity. Right. And we started seeing this uptick. We could see the human on the left for the 1, and then 20 for how many non-human identities are associated with each human user inside your organization. Starting the cloud era. And we can see down the bottom, all the great tools we have in place are IDP, SSO, MFA, IGA, and PAM, all the nice tools that are meant to cover human access into the environment are starting to be a little bit outnumbered, right? We're starting to see how identity is becoming more distributed into the cloud era. And the cloud era also, covers PaaS and SaaS apps. As they started coming out and being more popular. And then it started to explode more recently, right? This is more the number you're going to start to see, whether you're using AI or not. We're just in the AI era. where everything's as a service, everything is in cloud, or mostly, right? We do have on-premise as well, but even the on-premise is starting to use a lot of machine identities as well. And we can see that our human tools and our humans are farly outnumbered by NHIs in our system. Right now, it's a 45-to-1 ratio. Is the general standard that we see, right? It really changes based on your tech stack and also what you're doing internally at your company. So, why is this happening, right? So what we're seeing, you can see the tech stack that we have here on the right. We have Kubernetes, we have SaaS apps, we have Okta, we have Jira, we have AI platforms, whether it's OpenAI or agentic AI. And you'll start to see all the other non-human identities linking these systems together. Secrets, tokens, AI agents, right? API keys, service accounts. All these are different to non-human identities. And the modern infrastructure is becoming a breeding ground for these and really becoming the reason why we started decentralizing identity, and more teams outside of our IAM teams are starting to create identities that link between these different systems, right? Allow them to share data between these different systems, allow access, provision access. And what's happening is, I'm going to reference this report later on, right? Yeah, we're going to go through here in a minute, but during the survey for what the Cloud Security Alliance did, they interviewed over 820 professionals, and they found that 1 in 5 had a security incident related to non-human identities, whether it was a breach, a leak, misuse, unauthorized access. There's a ton that we're about to see, and what it leads to is chaos, right? How do we unleash chaos, which we'll see a little bit later on here in the live attack, where we can actually see, what does it take to actually perform these types of attacks, which is not too hard. And we can see what I always call unfortunate free marketing into the ecosystem, which is, different breaches, talking about credentials, non-human identities, persistent access that's getting leveraged and strung together, whether it's supply chain breaches, direct leakages, indirect attacks, right? We're seeing a lot of attacks show up from this vector, which is non-human identities, right? And also not even just non-human identities, but also, coupling those with human-based attacks, ransomware, phishing, and then getting to the non-human identities. So CSA did a great report, as I said, interviewing over 820 professionals, and they found some key findings inside of what we're seeing for non-human identities and the state of non-human identity security. So I'm only going to go through a couple of them. It's a very long report. That report can be obtained at the end as collateral from this event. I also, on that first slide where I was introducing myself, there's a link there that you can QR code that you can scan. And that CSA report is one of those collaterals on that page as well. So what they found, right, there's some key findings. I chose 3 to go through. One is struggling with the basics, right? When we start thinking about basics of security, we're thinking about inventory, understanding what we have, coverage, who owns this, who's on the other end of this connection, what does this thing actually do, right? You can see the challenging aspects up here, talking about the different access to privileges, the roles from that point of view. And then we start talking about, how much coverage do we have across, other items, right? And, talking to professionals, how do they feel they're doing as far as coverage? Not too much, right? So we're seeing a lot of below 50%, even below 40% across the board for how they feel they're covering and have visibility in a more dynamic way, right? It used to be that we could just, create a script, dump it off to a CSA report, couple that with our policy, hand it in, and we pass our audit. Maybe we do a little bit of cleanup. It's not really what we can do anymore. So, having the ability to actually discover and look at permissions, right, and be, deterministic about what we're seeing in the platform or inside our environment. From there, right, we want to look at, managing permissions in API keys, right? This was another big issue that came up, right? And some of them come down to offboarding. Some of them come down to rotation of keys and understanding, is this truly what we need inside the environment, right? So having the ability to actually track when a human user leaves, changes roles, goes to a different part of the organization, wherever it may be, or they get fired. How long does it take for us to identify that a token is no longer in use and belong to an ex-employee? How long does it take to rotate or change it back to a steady state? And also, what does it look like to understand if those permissions are correct inside there, right? This was a major challenge and it created a long gap inside current environments without the visibility to actually do anything about this, right? To understand how do we go about this, right? And it's something that Astrix provides for our customers. And then the other key finding that's very interesting, and this is one we talk about a lot, is you're probably sitting there thinking, well, I do see service accounts over here, I do see API keys over here, I do have something watching my cloud environments, maybe I have an SSPM, maybe I have all these other tools, and you'll see those tools up here, right? You'll see what we're doing internally, whether it's custom or we're using a tool, and what they found was that it's a very fragmented approach, right? It's a fragmented approach from what we're doing today, where we're actually looking at either a specific vertical with a tool or only looking at a specific slice of the problem, meaning that, if I'm looking at cloud only with my CNAP, if I'm looking at SaaS only my SSPM, maybe I'm looking at, service accounts in my IDP with a PAM solution, right? All these different items are finding, right? But also we saw before when I had that spaghetti screen of how all these non-human identities connect. If we're not getting the holistic picture to see how these environments are affecting each other, how they're cross-pollinating, how the lateral movements exist, understanding how one environment can affect another, it's leading to a fragmented approach that we're not seeing the whole picture. We're not getting the context. This leads to the breaches, right? Something that I may not react to just looking at my CNAP, but I would react to if I saw that, something in my SaaS, something on my on-prem, that's connected into that cloud role, cloud account, is also leaked or has been used anonymously inside there. So there's a lot, to be, increased as far as the visibility from a fragmented approach. And the last one, where are they looking to invest, right? So, currently, where are they on this life cycle with investing into NHI and the capabilities? You'll see, the investments on the rise, right? Trying to get to the point where they can get the coverage, right? They've identified that they do have the pain point. So whether they're in the part of provisioning budget, whether they're already there, and this happened towards the end of last year. So this is even further along as we go from here. So probably if you watch this video, you're looking for the actual attack, which is always the fun part. So let's go ahead and get to the attack. Right. So what we're going to be doing inside the attack is I'm not going to use anything fancy. I'm not going to use, Kali or anything crazy to, leverage any sort of items. I'm just going to use non-human identities and just watch them as we go through, kind of stepping back and what the attack is. Right. We have this company called Square CD. Right. We're going to take Square CD as our target. Right. We're going to tell them, hey, we've reconned you. You've ticked us off in some sort of way. We're going to come after you. Right. And it doesn't have to be this way. Maybe it's just a key I found out in the open. But this is, strategically an attack against them. So I've done some recon against them. I understand that, a little bit about their technology stack. I understand that they use AWS. I understand that they use GitHub. I found their developers. I started watching all their developers on GitHub to see what they do publicly, to see if they slip up. In this case, I will find a slip up in a public repository. We're going to do some lateral movements, getting through different parts of their tech stack using non-human identities. And then, we got to make it worth our time, right? We got to do something where we're going to make a financial gain. So we're going to do some sort of stealing. We're going to conceal our actions, right? We're going to try to trigger another type of attack. So it looks like that's what we truly did. And then we're also going to try to persist, right? We're going to make sure that we can actually exist further into the environment for a longer time so we can come back when we want to. So a couple of key points to know before we get to the attack. So we use a Postman inside here. Will also be, one of the questions I always get is, so I have a leak secret, so what, right? No one knows what it goes to. No one knows where it belongs. It's a very big misnomer, right? Understanding where these things go is huge, right? And it's very easy, right? At the very beginning of most tokens, there's a prefix, and it's a very known prefix. It's very public. It's not something that is being hidden. So for example, like XOXP, right? XOX, I already know goes to Slack. P could be a user token. B is a bot token, right? AKIA, I have an AWS access key, and vice versa, right? Keep going. So we're going to go through that now, and we're going to go through the demo. So this is pre-recorded only because we're short on time, but I'll go through and walk you through as we're going through the attack. So as we talked about, we wanted to come in here and see the public repo. So we're going to go ahead and clone that public repo that we found from a developer. We're going to CD into it, and then we're going to run git leaks. Git leaks is an open source tool that lets us see leaked codes, or leaked secrets in code. We're going to see that we have an AKIA, we have an AWS access token, and we also see where it is, right? It's in the Jenkins connector .sh file. So we're going to try to cat it out and see, hey, can we see this file? So we can read the key. It's not there, right? So what's the reason for that? We actually start looking at the branches, and we can realize that it's actually part of a hidden branch, not the master, right? And this is important because this is sometimes, maybe, developers or your tools aren't looking for the most, the sub branches, the hidden branches, right? They're only looking for the master branch for scanning. So what we're going to do here instead is we're going to read the commit, right? Inside the commit, we'll actually see the access key, and we'll also see the secret. We're going to take those two, access key and secret, and we're going to see first, is it valid, right? So we're going to create an AWS profile on this box using those keys. Again, preset it up to make the video a little bit quicker. We add the access key and the secret in here, and then we're going to run something called caller identity, right? This is going to tell us, hey, who are we, right? From a AWS standpoint. Once we have this, we're going to be able to say, okay, are we real? We are. And we're called Square CD, CICD, SA, right? So we're a service account inside AWS for Square CD. All makes sense, right? So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to look into Secret Manager, and can we see other secrets, right? We're not going to try to do anything else. We're just going to try to see, hey, can we see other secrets? So we see one that's a CI/CD Slack bot, and then we see, personal access token to GitHub. Okay, cool, right? So let's see if we can actually read these secrets, right? So we're going to go ahead and run a Java query against the secrets manager and say, hey, tell me about that, that Slack bot, right? And again, I can see at the very beginning that it's XOX. So we know it goes to, Slack. Even though they named it for us, bot token and user token, it was very nice of them. They didn't have to. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that over to our Postman collection here. Postman is just a tool for testing APIs. So we're going to see that we're going to copy in the bot token, and we're also going to copy in the user token because we want to see, one, are they valid? And two, what can we do with them? Luckily for us, a lot of these SaaS tools provide very public endpoints to test just that, right? So we can see in Slack, they have alt test, which allows us to say, hey, here's our bot token that we saved. We're going to run this, and we say, okay, we get a hit, right? We get a 200 status code, meaning that it does exist. We can tell which Slack workspace it goes to. And we can also see something that's really cool in the headers that's not particularly known by many, but they're actually going to return back the OAuth scopes, right? So they told me where it goes, and they're also telling me the scopes. So let's check the user token again and see what else it has. And what the OAuth scopes are going to tell me is, what can this key actually do against this environment? And we're going to see one called groups history, right? Which is actually a very misleading tool. It actually means that I can read all private channels inside of Slack, right? So I'm going to run the next post or get inside of Slack to see what channels can I actually read, right? We saw general, we saw CI/CD, right? So we can see that we can see channels, right? It's not a empty workspace. And then we're going to do one other item, right? So I'm going to pause this real quick because it's going to run too fast on, right? So what we're going to see is we're running the query for all Slack messages against this key prefix, right? We know that they run AWS. So we want to see, hey, has anyone said a comment or sent a message that had an access key in it, right? So essentially that's what we're looking for. And we're going to get a hit, right? We have a 200 error. We have 200 status code. We have a hit. And if we scroll all the way down, we're actually going to see the text. That's pretty common, right? Hopefully it's not too common inside your environment, but it says, hey, here's the secret for AWS. Please delete it afterwards, or let me know so I can remove it, right? No one removed it. So what are we going to do now? We're going to start using that key. And again, see if maybe it's inactive, maybe it's not. We're going to configure the new profile with the new access key and the new secret and run that same caller identity. We're going to see, hey, is this something we can actually do anything with? If not, let's figure out, maybe another move. So we're going to run the caller identity and we get another hit, right? In this case, we get a little bit cheeky here. Hopefully it's not this bad, but it's AWS admin, right? Knowing that it's AWS admin, we're going to run, list attached user policies to see what else this thing can do. We can see it has secrets manager, read, write, right? So not only can I read secrets again, but I can also write secrets. So I could also make a backdoor if I wanted to at this point. So inside here, right, I can also see that I have the GitHub prod personal access token. So we're going to go ahead and describe that token as well. Now that we have access into AWS. So now we can see that we have, that GHP, GitHub personal access token. We're going to take that token back to Postman. We're going to put that token inside here so we have the ability to actually use it. And we're going to run some API calls against it, right? First, let's see anything that GitHub provides back. We've already seen all the public repos because we did our due diligence. Now we want to see private repos. So we get a really good hit on the very first part. It says app prod, right? Now this is something that I'm going to save as another environment variable, telling us the repo that we're going to also run commands against in here, and we're going to understand what are the contents of this repo, right? So now that we can see we do have access, right? We can see a couple git ignore files, right? We can see a lot of the config files here. The README might be nice to know what this thing does. But we're going to scroll a bit more down to see if we get anything that makes sense. Scripts that may have more embedded keys, but here's where we start to understand. All right, we've started to make money here because we have source files, right? Now we can start stealing code bases, and maybe this is intellectual property. Maybe this is something else we want to see, right? So what we're going to do now is start to cover our tracks. Once we download that source file, we want to do something else and see, hey, let's do everyone's favorite cloud-based attack and try to attack S3 buckets, right? Make it look like a data breach. So we're going to see that we have access to some S3 buckets here. We're going to go check out that customer data. We can see that we have payment methods, payment agreements, right? That's always fun to go ahead and steal, right? Let's go ahead and do, employee backup data, right? We have something interesting here called customer connector keys, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to look in the customer connector keys, and we start seeing JSON files with company names in them, right? We also see one called important customer. So let's go ahead and try to download this JSON file. And we're going to go ahead and understand what is actually inside, right? What is this JSON file that we have? Now that we've downloaded this object from S3, we're going to go ahead and read it, right? We see that we have the important customer JSON file here. Let's go ahead and cat it out to see what's inside. And bingo, right? We have a key file, right? So this is actually a key file, not to your environment, but to one of your customers' environments, right? So Square CD's customer is now about to be attacked, right? First, we need to make sure it still works. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a profile using this key and see if we can actually get to GCP. Now we see that we're in GCP, and not GCP of Square CD, but their customer. We're going to list all the projects we can see in their Google Cloud. We can see one. And then we're also going to see who are we to this customer. So now we have the ability to see that we are an editor role in the customer's GCP environment. So from here, what did we just do, right? We did a couple things. One, we found a leaked secret outside the main branch within a public repository. That was our way in, right? So even though it wasn't committed, we were able to find it in a public repo. Questions always asked, why would this happen? Where this would happen would be, actually seeing internal developers who want to make something open source or want to make something cool for the community. Well, it's probably because they already built something internally, and now they want to take that and make it more public. So when they clone it down here and they have it as a hidden branch, they're not thinking many people are looking at it. It's not published where it may be, right? What they're not realizing is that they haven't scrubbed it yet, right? So there may actually be secrets or other issues inside there, and that's what we were able to take advantage of. Happens very often. what we're able to do is, we didn't use anything fancy. We just used keys that we found in vaults, keys that we found in plain text, in messages, in repos, to go between non-human identities and in different environments, never needing a human credential, never needing biometrics, never needing MFA. From that point of view, we're able to steal that source code from the GitHub repository, from the initial repo. And then we're also able to conceal our crime. We pretended to be an S3 breach. And it just happened to be stumbled across some great material. That material happened to be connector keys to their customer environments. We found those connector keys, and then we turned SquareCD from being the target to being the supply of our supply chain breach, right? So it was a really, you can see how we kind of went, from just targeting them directly to also targeting their customers. Now we create backdoors in SquareCD's environment. We can create backdoors in their customer environments. So even if they tell their customers to rotate the tokens, we've already created a new key inside of there. So how does Astrix help this out, right? What we've seen is that, the human side is covered by our IGA, our PAM, our ITDR solutions that are out there. What's not covered is all the third party, all the API keys, all the OAuth apps, the app extensions, everything that happens outside of just that human access, whether it's, AI, enforced, whether it's not, right? And we can see, more than likely, based on the CS report, there's a lot of orphaned connections out there that don't need to be there anymore, that would not allow for what I did before to be out there, right? Understanding how can we scan for leaked secrets, understanding, what permissions are not needed. So we wouldn't need, a little bit higher privilege accounts. We could actually baseline that connection and bring it back down, right? So this is really where we kind of work together with these other solutions in place. And then we talk about, some of the use cases, some of the product capabilities, right? We're talking about, not just looking at a simple vertical, right? We're not saying, hey, just look at your SaaS environment, just look at your CI/CD, just look at your vaults, your cloud environment, right? We want to look across all of it, right? We want to understand both sides. We want to understand how these cross-platform connections happen, how they're behaving, any anomalous behavior that may be happening within them, the third party that's coming across, right? All that becomes into the inventory. Who owns this thing? Why does it need these permissions? What third party may be connected? Security posture, right? We're a security company. Is it secured connectly? Is it the right authorization? Authentication method? Is it overprivileged? Is it orphaned? Is it coming from, is it set to expire in, 3099, right? That's not a real credential expiration. That's, more close to never expiring, right? Understand, behavior based. This is a really big part for us when we talk about behavior, understanding what's normal, what's abnormal, breaches, supply chain breaches, ex-employees may be coming back into your system. And then obviously, it's great to know all these things, but it's also really great to be able to remediate. Understand, how do we set up workflows? How do we use your current workflows, SIM, SOAR, ITSM, ITDR, whatever it may be that you need to set the remediation. We can do remediation ourselves. We can also work with your existing stack to do remediation as well. I believe this is the last slide here. Wow, I got almost right on time, Sean, here. But we want to leave a minute or two for questions. So I'll leave this up here for any questions. While we have about a minute left or 2 minutes left in the live stream. Sean, are we seeing any questions come in?
Yeah, we have a couple. I think they're mostly from Paul and myself.
Yeah.
Couple around AI. If I'm talking to an agent which passes the Turing test, how do I know whether it's a human or a non-human identity?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? So that's one of these. You can see actually we call out AI agents specifically inside here as some of the use cases is understanding. How do we understand if a connection is one coming from AI? Is it coming from an agent? Is it coming from an open LLM like Gemini or OpenAI? Are they truly the back end? These are things that we baseline based off of behavior. We can fingerprint that and tell you about that. Behavior becomes, the central focus of what we're trying to do at Astrix, right? Because without behavior, it's really tough to tell truly what's a human, what's a non-human, right? We could see human accounts acting as non-human, right? If Paul sets up his service account to connect two systems because he was denied access for a service account or he just didn't ask, right? That's not something that's a human account. That's a human account now acting as a non-human account, right? Or vice versa, right? Am I using an API key in a very human way because I want to do something different with it, right? So those are metrics that we track and we can baseline. And it only extends further into when we talk about AI and we talk about which human users own this bot, which human users consume this bot. And what is it touching? Is it leveraging multiple non-human identities? Is it leveraging just one, right? Does it need all the identities that it needs, right? So AI is just an extension that we're seeing, right? All this agentic AI really needs, access to non-human identities to do its work. So it can, kind of keep moving on. So that's why we extended naturally into this space. It also helps that one of our, backers is Anthropic. From that point of view, they participated in our round B back in December. So being that they own the Claude system, right? Understanding where we fit in with that era is massive for us.
Okay. Without wanting you to reveal any roadmaps you have, what NHIs are you not looking at?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? So to not reveal too much of the roadmap, right, is there's not really much that we're not covering here, right? You can see on the left-hand side, right, whether it's even on premise, it doesn't matter, right? So we're adding new platforms all the time. The other cool part is that we don't need to cover every single system in order to see most systems, right? The fact that if I have a app out there for I'll pick on a MailChimp, right? They just send marketing emails, right? I'm not too concerned about MailChimp, but I am concerned when it connects to my CRM. I am concerned when it connects to my collaboration suite. I am concerned, from that point of view. So we capture a lot of that shadow SaaS or shadow AI through those connections. But yeah, to answer your question, right? So one of the things we don't do, right? We don't have an agent. We're completely agentless, which makes it so we can't see local accounts on, say, like a Windows machine or a Unix box. Do we close that gap this year? Maybe. Who knows, right? Is there something that's needed? Who knows, right? But that's so far out, right? What is the basic need? It's I come back from the CNAP world most recently, and that's something that CNAP has agents on machines, right? They're actually looking for those local accounts on there. So is it double dipping? Is it an integration point? It's a lot of questions from that point of view.
Wonderful.
So have you got detection logic when it comes to essentially finding out if people are supplying their own credentials to an automated service? So people doing this shadow IT automation type thing where they just go, oh, I'll fire up a Zapier account, I'll use my own creds to Slack and my own creds to GitHub or whatever to do the automation.
Yeah, it's a great point, right? So because we're tracking the full life cycle, it is something we can identify and fingerprint, right? If it's something that we have a normal process that everything comes through Terraform or everything comes through Pulumi or some sort of other process, it has to come through an admin, right? And then we see that a normal user consents to an OAuth app or creates a API key or integrates with a very risky third party. Those are all items that we can track and see. Those are all items that we can create workflows on to also notify and prevent. As we go through it and learn what's normal inside your environment to be done. But it is all around that, and that's all part of that ownership and usage engine that we're doing to understand truly who's behind what we're seeing, what's happening inside the system.
So you're tracking where the non-human identities came from. So
yes.
Where there's like people, some systems have the concept of that you'll create an OAuth key and there'll be a user behind that, and it will still retain some elements of the user's identity and permissions.
Correct. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I think we're just about at time. We didn't get any questions coming from YouTube. We've got some questions coming from Paul and myself. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time and for the insight.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me.
If you want to rewatch this, it is already up on cloudsecurityalliance.org.uk. You can rewatch it obviously at your leisure. If you signed into the end of this and want to watch it from the beginning, if you're interested in this and more, hopefully, interesting talks that we put on, join the LinkedIn group. Also join us on Circle if you're a member of CSA.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye.